Okay. Hi everybody, it's Chef Erin.
Hi, Chef Chelsea. Welcome back to the Coffee Flower Lab here in Seattle. And happy International Coffee Day.
Happy International, I was at the store this morning and I kept hearing people say, oh, it's National Coffee Day, even on the news. It's National Coffee Day. It's actually International Coffee Day, so for all of those outside of the U.S., happy Coffee Day to you as well. Thanks for joining us. In honor of International Coffee Day, we thought that we would focus more on beverages today, as well as the impact that coffee flower is having on the coffee industry, kind of expanding the world of coffee knowledge beyond the bean. So I wanted to go over a little bit, we did this last time, go over a little bit what coffee flower is. Coffee is actually a fruit, as we discussed last time, and when the fruit is harvested, typically, the farmers have been after the pit of the coffee cherry, which goes, it's the green bean as we know it, and then it goes to be roasted and ground and put in your cup for your morning joe. We have come in at Coffee Flower and we have developed a way to take that fruit that has always been discarded and we dry it. This is the actual dried pulp. We dry it and then we mill it into this product that we call coffee flour. And last time we went over a delicious gluten-free olive oil, cocoa, and coffee flour cake. And today, as I said, we're going to go over, I think, 5 different beverages that use the whole cherry, the bean and the actual fruit in some of them. So some have the caffeinated coffee that we all know and love, as well as the coffee flour, and some are drinks that are just made with the coffee flour and without the caffeinated coffee that we're familiar with. So, yeah, Chelsea?
Take it away. Okay, I'm going to start with just using a basic Mr. Coffee pot, and we're going to brew some tea, which can be enjoyed hot or cold. I'm going to use our coarse grind, which we didn't really touch base on. Right now we have 2 available grinds on market. We have our regular, which we made with our olive oil cake with. It's more of our baking for breads, pastries, etc. But we also have this coarse grind, which it looks very similar to tea, and that's how we're going to start using it today. For 12 cups, well, we'll start with 12 cups of water. We talked briefly last time about the fiber and the absorption of coffee flour. And well, let's see, there's a lot to cover. So with 12 cups of water, you would typically use about 12 tablespoons of coffee. If you were just going to brew regular coffee, with coffee flour, we can take it down by almost half. And so we only need 6 to 8 tablespoons of coffee flour for our 12 cups of water. So I have just under half a cup of our coarse grind. I'm going to put this in the filter, bring it over to our machine.
While Chelsea's doing that, I'm going to touch a little bit on the impact. Especially in coffee growing regions, that coffee flour as a company is able to have. As I mentioned, the fruit has typically been discarded, and that means that historically the coffee farmers, when they are harvesting, they have only been paid for the pit of the cherry, what we know as the bean, which is a shame because they pick the entire fruit. They should be paid for the entire fruit. We at Coffee Flower, we make sure that the farmers that we work with are paid for the entire fruit. We have introduced an increased revenue stream, an additional revenue stream to these coffee farmers, and just a little bit of money in what we would consider a small amount of money makes a huge amount of difference to these coffee farmers. So being paid for the entire fruit that they're picking is a really big deal. Another thing that we want to go over is the environmental impact. You can imagine that when this fruit is discarded, because they're after the bean, this is where the money has historically been, they don't have time to pay attention to the discarded fruit. They set it aside and they let it go until the end of harvest. And you can imagine that piles and piles and piles of fruit that sit there until the end of harvest when they do have time to pay attention to it. These are in warm, moist regions, and this is a high in sugar product that's just left out in the sun. So you can imagine that the yeast and the molds and the toxins that really start getting active in there, and it really ends up being a terrible environmental hazard because it leaches into their ground system, and then at the end of harvest, oftentimes what they'll do to get rid of it is they'll push it into rivers, which then of course carries everything downstream. So by us coming in and removing the pulp and actually turning it into a viable ingredient, we are removing an environmental hazard and helping to clean up their own environment.
Exactly right. Okay, so while our tea is brewing, I made some in advance just so we could show you the next couple of steps. So this is iced tea, brewed from the Mr. Coffee, chilled overnight, and this is delicious just as is. It's great straight, but our favorite is with sliced orange. We tend to like this better than adding sugar for a sweet tea or a honey because it has some really nice natural flavors.
As Chelsea is slicing that up, I'm just going to kind of embellish on that. We've tried different citrus fruits. We've tried lemon. We've tried, what you would typically put into a tea. And as she said, the orange works best. It's just a very simple addition, 3 or 4 orange slices, and what you get is a really pure flavor from the coffee fruit in addition to the orange, which really accentuates the flavors that already exist. So you don't need to go all crazy trying to get fancy with the mint or the honey or whatever you typically put in your tea. A couple slices of orange and it's perfect.
Yes. So using this tea, I could then go and make a simple syrup, and with that simple syrup, you can use it to make different beverages, whether it's a milk steamer. You can sweeten your tea with that, and that way you're adding the flavor, and you're concentrating the flavor, and you're not adding any water or additional sugars or juice.
Sorry, I was looking for some milk there.
Oh, I have milk.
We have a question.
Here.
Perfect.
Question from Carol. Where can I buy this tea?
Excellent question. So the coarse grind is not available quite yet in stores, but we are hoping to get it online through the retailers that we spoke about last time, and that's Mark's Pantry, that's MARX, as well as nuts.com. Right now, the item that is available retail-wise is the regular grind. But we are working very hard on getting the coarse grind in, and if you go to nuts.com and say, hey, I'm looking for the coarse grind, I'm sure that that will help speed the process up.
Yes, give them a little nudge. I'm going to do a little simple syrup if you don't mind. While this is brewing, I figure I'll just use our iced tea.
Perfect.
And for a traditional simple syrup recipe, it's equal parts tea to sugar. So I have a pot here. I'm going to take half a cup of tea. This could be with or without the orange. It really doesn't matter. And half a cup of sugar. We'll bring that up to a boil, and once the sugar is dissolved, you have a delicious coffee cherry tea simple syrup.
It's not simple. It's the iced tea, equal parts iced tea to sugar.
That easy. Yes.
Perfect.
And again, you can use that for milk steamers, making flavored lattes, sweetening your iced tea if you prefer a sweet tea. So while that's working, I think I'm going to jump into a hot cocoa.
Excellent.
All right, so we could do a hot cocoa using over-the-counter cocoa mix. This is about, what, 10 grams of cocoa mix?
That's 20 grams of cocoa mix, and that's your typical hot cocoa packet that you just,
Rip
tear
open, dump, and add hot water or milk. So we have our cocoa mix, and then about 10 to 15% of our regular ground coffee flour added to it. And what this does is it adds depth and flavor, it boosts the chocolate flavors or enhances those natural notes, it gives it a little bit more of a dark chocolate flavor and mouthfeel, and it adds the nutritional benefits that coffee offers. So your fiber, your antioxidants, your protein, all of that good stuff. And we could just make this as normal. We have an Insta-Hot, or you can use steamed milk, but the package calls for 8 to 10 ounces of water. So that's what we'll do.
One of the nice things about this particular application with an instant cocoa that's over the counter is typically they are just add hot water because that's what makes them so convenient. But the mouthfeel isn't always that great. It's not the same as if you were to make cocoa from scratch with steamed milk and the chocolate. And the coffee flour is going to help give that a more traditional cocoa feel, a little bit more body in there. And that's due to the fiber in coffee flour. It helps thicken things up. So you're going from what you could, what would typically be a just add hot water, and you're making it seem like a more from scratch mouthfeel cocoa.
Yes. So this is done. I just stirred it in. I have to try.
It's, we went here in Seattle, we went from 85 degrees today to 85 degrees yesterday to 65 today, so we're all kind of long sleeves and warm drinks right now.
Getting ready for fall, and with that, coffee cherry cocoa. That's
Perfect.
the way to do it.
Perfect.
All right. So our simple syrup is already done. It was that fast. Brought it up to a boil. The sugar dissolved. So this you'll just want to chill. And of course, made a little bit ahead. Perfect. So, thanks, Erin.
Betcha.
So have a milk frother here. Perfect.
Makes it easy.
It does.
While Chelsea's filling that, are you going to do the latte or the steamer?
We could do one of each if we'd like. The
Sure.
latte is a great example of using the whole coffee fruit, which I love.
So because we did not bring our espresso machine into the set today because it's very large, we are going to do I guess it would be a mock latte with a strong brew French press rather than an espresso shot, but you get the same idea. You can either use a strong brew coffee, or if you're lucky enough to have an espresso machine at home, you can go ahead and pull those shots. But we're going to do a strong brew French press to make a mock latte using the coffee cherry syrup that Chelsea baked.
Yes, and this may ring a bell to some of you at some of your favorite coffee chains. Almost dropped a name. You'll see a cascara latte. So this is our version of a cascara latte, but we're using coffee cherry fruit instead. I'm not saying cascara isn't the fruit, but there are very different methods of preparing the fruit.
Right, so traditional cascara as a beverage takes the naturals. I don't want to get too technical, but it takes what we call the naturals, and that is after the fruit has started to ferment a little bit. And I talked a little bit about the yeast and molds. Cascara is a fermented coffee cherry fruit. What we do, because we capture our fruit before it starts to ferment, we just kind of negate any yeast or molds that typically give that cascara is a very identifiable flavor. So what you're getting from ours, because ours doesn't have the fermentation, is a more pure, true version of the fruit flavor.
That's right. When we're at origin, we're able to capture the fruit and stabilize it in the drying method before any of that fermentation starts. And so
Absolutely.
that's our number one difference between our coffee cherry flour and cascara products. So this is looking good.
Chelsea's just steaming the milk. Going back to the impact that we have on the coffee world, especially in coffee growing regions, we spoke a little bit about making sure that the farmers get an increased revenue stream, and spoke a little bit about the environmental impact. I want to take the environmental impact to kind of another level. Of course, we want to remove something that's damaging for the environment out of it. But one of the things that we've kind of discovered is it's that domino effect, or that pebble in the pond, where you do one thing and it has all these other effects that kind of come along and you discover. So once we start removing these piles of fruit and stabilize them and dry them, we started figuring out that by doing this, we're also able to reduce the mosquito population. Obviously, a big fermenting pile of fruit is a perfect breeding ground for insects, especially mosquitoes. So if you think about the effect that the diseases that these mosquitoes carry have on these fragile populations that tend to be undernourished in the first place, we're talking about malaria, we're talking about Zika, we're talking about dengue. If we can reduce these piles of fruit, we effectively are reducing the breeding ground for mosquitoes. So that's one of these, not only are we removing it and protecting the water system, but we're also removing a breeding ground for something that's really, really damaging to human life.
Right, and you may have seen in the news this week that there's this new malaria virus that's incurable, or it's not reacting to any of the current antibiotics, which is really scary. So if more and more people are able to use these products before the mosquitoes even come to make those breeding grounds, then
It's a win-win.
yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Latte.
yes.
We have our strong French press or espresso, whatever you're able to make at home.
Because we're using the strong French press, we're doing there's a little more coffee in here than you would see with an espresso shot.
That's right.
Unless you like that much espresso.
Which
Kudos.
We'll take about a half an ounce to 1 ounce, depending on how sweet you prefer your lattes. Stir that in. And add our steamed milk. And this could be made with or without the coffee.
So that is the latte version. You still have some milk in there, so we'll just do a little steamer version. Same drink without the coffee. Many of you, I'm sure, have indulged in a vanilla steamer or an almond steamer. Same idea here. We're just using the coffee flower syrup instead of the vanilla syrup or the almond syrup.
Top it off with a little foam to make it look authentic.
Perfect.
There we are.
So Chelsea had the cocoa. I'm going to have this one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Excellent. So the next thing that I wanted to touch on is the socio impact that coffee flower is able to have on these regions. A lot of times, especially in the on the coffee farms and in the coffee mills, most of the jobs are held by males because the green beans themselves are very heavy when you put them into the traditional coffee sacks. So not to say that women can't do it, women certainly can, but they traditionally, the jobs are held by majority-wise by men. We use the same sacks that the green beans go in for the dried coffee cherry pulp, which is much, much, much lighter. Therefore, it is easier for women to carry these sacks once they're full. So we have been able to increase the number of jobs at the mills and at the farms by with the coffee flower pulp. And the majority of these jobs have gone to women because it is much easier for the women to carry these bags of pulp. Now you can imagine that in coffee growing regions, it's usually pretty difficult for a woman to find a safe, stable, secure job that is year-round. So that's a benefit, another domino that we have found that has fallen, that coffee flower creates new jobs, and the majority of these jobs have gone to women. Now, that has this ripple effect down the road. You want to take this?
Well, I'll touch on it and
Okay.
you can finish because I see that our Mr. Coffee is done brewing.
Perfect.
So, once you are providing an income to a mother of a family, she is likely going to choose to send her kids to school. Now, often the school itself doesn't come at a cost, but the books and supplies that you need to go to school do come with a cost, and that keeps many kids from even attending. So, by giving them this additional income, we're hoping that that sends more kids in school, and we're seeing that.
Absolutely.
And we also hope that when they finish school, they'll choose to go on to college. Maybe some of them will go into some business degrees or farming degrees and bring that education back to their family farm and expand their family business.
Right, so they could feasibly go on to higher education, get the degrees, use that knowledge, take it back to their family farm, and expand from a small family farm into a thriving, expanding business here.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So I started with 12 cups of water, and now we have 10. 2 cups of water was absorbed by the coffee cherry pulp because of its high fiber content.
Great.
So with this, you could chill it down. You have iced tea. You could drink it this way. I love it this way personally. And if you're a coffee person or a tea person, this one hits right in the middle and will appease both flavor palettes, I believe.
Right, and the nice thing about the coffee cherry tea is it does have a small amount of caffeine, not as much as a cup of coffee, so if you are one of these people like me who has coffee in the morning to get themselves going, but maybe doesn't want it in the afternoon because you're afraid that it will keep you up at night, but you still need a little bit of something, but you're not resigned to decaf quite yet. This is a nice balance. It has a little bit of caffeine, not as much as coffee, more than decaf, so this will kind of carry you through your day.
Exactly. All right, a few more drinks that I'd like to try. With the simple syrup, how about a mocktail or a cocktail? Awesome. Okay. So we're going to use the same simple syrup, and this is a really easy recipe, kind of a 1, 2, 3 recipe, if you will. We're going to start with 1 ounce
I'm going to move these for
of
you.
simple syrup. If we're using booze, which, why not? If it wasn't 9 in the morning, I'd have a bottle of vodka right here. we'll add 2 ounces of
Right.
vodka.
So it's a 1 to 2 coffee flour syrup to vodka or whatever the liquor of your choice is
Yes.
ratio.
And then 3 parts seltzer water. Yep, sparkling water. So your 1, 2, 3 cocktail. 1 ounce simple syrup, 2 ounces of booze, or you could leave it out entirely, that's just fine. 3 ounces of sparkling water.
And while that sparkling water is going in, I'm going to grab an orange. Just like with the iced tea, when we spoke about the orange, we have found that orange works best in this cocktail mocktail, and it's just a simple orange twist. Just to kind of release the oils that are in the orange, and you've got a fantastic mocktail or cocktail, depending on your time of day.
It's very refreshing, not too sweet.
Yeah, it's just
Delicious.
a really light, refreshing way to go. What else have we got?
So these are our beverages that we've covered, but if anyone has any questions or you'd like to try something at home and you're feeling a little bit stuck, we're here to offer our help.
And we should mention that you can find us at www.coffeeflower.com. You can find us on Facebook under Coffee Flower. You can find us on Twitter, or you can find us on Instagram at Coffee Flower Lab, which is where we are. This is where we do all of our research and development. And if you see something on Instagram or on Facebook page and you think, I want to know how to make that, just comment and we will work it into our rotation.
Yeah. And if you're interested in trying some of the course product at home, you're able to easily get the regular on nuts.com, marksfoods.com, or Mark's Pantry.
Mark's Pantry.
All right. I was at Trader Joe's briefly. If you're interested in trying the course, either reach out to us directly on our website or contact nuts.com or Mark's Pantry and say, hey, when are you going to start carrying the course product? I'm really interested in giving it a try.
You can also find us in the bulk section at Sprouts Farmers Markets, and they also have some finished products in their bakery section if you want to try a muffin or a cookie and see what coffee flour brings to it before you dive in and start buying the ingredient. So I think
that's about it.
I think we're ready to go into International Coffee Day, all coffeed up. Here's my drink.
I'll stick to the
Stick
steamer.
to the steamer.
Yes.
We will see you guys again in 2 weeks. Again, just send us a message and let us know if there's something that you'd like to see us make, and we will do our best to get that in. All right?
Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.